Minister for Labour, Jobs and Employment Rashid Purpo assures all outstanding grievances will be resolved by tomorrow to enable Clocksack members call off the strike. We'll bring you all the details. Also coming up, National Tripartite Committee settles on a 10% single spine base pay and a 19.97 cedi daily minimum wage. We'll tell you about how President Mahama's intervention led to breaking the deadlock during negotiations. And much later, embattled MP for Akwatia Ernest Yalkumi files an appeal against his contempt of court conviction and a stay of execution for the bench warrant for his arrest. All of these stories plus business and sports all coming up in the next 90 minutes. But for now, Grace Hammoah is here with a summary of the news. Grace?
Yes, Beatrice, let's begin from the seat of government. Government has granted a 10% salary increment for public sector workers on the single spine salary structure and also agreed to a 10% adjustment for the daily minimum wage. Negotiations between the government and organized labor had been ongoing for almost 3 weeks. It therefore became necessary to conclude negotiations today to enable government to prepare its budget for the 2025 fiscal year due for presentation in March. The Finance Minister, Dr. Akrofi, who led the government side during the negotiations, tabled an 8% pay increase. Labour, on the other hand, demanded a 60% increase, but later revised it to 35% minimum. President John Mahama has unveiled his 19-member cabinet to assist in governing the country during his tenure. Minister of State for Government Communications, Felix Kwakye-Fosu, who revealed this, said the appointments are aimed at tackling pressing national challenges and fulfilling key campaign promises. The newly constituted cabinet comprises a blend of experienced MPs and key sector ministers. And work at the ministries virtually came to a standstill following the nationwide industrial action by the Civil and Local Government Staff Association, Clocksack. Persons who came to engage the ministries on respective projects had to leave frustrated and unattended to. The story was no different in the Ashanti and Volta regions, where persons who worked to some districts and municipal assemblies to seek services had to return to their various destinations without being served. Clocksack is on strike to demand the removal of the newly appointed Birth and Death Registrar, Samuel Boche. Finally, the International Finance Corporation, IFC, has expressed commitment to investing in local companies to create more jobs for Ghanaians. With a target of $600 million this year, the corporation says it will seek partnerships with the government and members of parliament to grow the private sector. The majority leader expressed confidence such collaborations will help boost the economy. That's it for the news. I'm Ms. Beatrice.
Thank you very much, Grace Hammoah. Let's bring you the details of our stories now. And the government has granted a 10% salary increment for public sector workers on the single spine salary structure. It has also agreed to a 10% adjustment for the daily minimum wage. Negotiations between the government and organized labor had been ongoing for almost 3 weeks. It therefore became necessary to conclude negotiations today to enable the government prepare its budget for the 2025 fiscal year due to presentations, the early presentation in March. For more than 3 hours, both parties could not agree on the figures. The Finance Minister, Dr. Akrofi, who led the government side during the negotiations today, tabled an 8% pay increase. Labour, on the other hand, demanded a 60% increment, but later revised it down to a 30% minimum. When it became obvious that negotiations were headed for a deadlock, President Mahama intervened, urging organised labour to accept a 10% increase and assured them of better days ahead. Listen.
that let's tamper our demands for this year. And once we get out of the woods, we've set good targets to bring inflation down so that the cost of everything will come down. We've set targets to grow the economy, to make things better. And when the cake is baked and it's bigger, we'll share bigger. We are proposing an independent emoluments committee that would set the incomes for everybody from the president right down to the ordinary laborer. We are prepared to walk this journey with you, but I just appeal to you that let's reach agreement on this one so that we use this year as the year of correction. And then after we've corrected, we'll see how the economy continues to go. Once the economy moves in the direction that we are all hoping for, we all, if we have an independent emoluments committee, maybe if you suggest 35%, I'll support you because it will affect my pay too.
And you had President John Mahama. Well, this paved the way for the Minister for Labour, Jobs and Employment, Dr. Rashid Pelpo, to announce the agreed base pay.
The parties negotiating as the Public Services Joint Standing Negotiating Committee have concluded negotiations for the 2025 single spine salary structure base. It is agreed as follows. Terms of agreement: that the base pay on the single spine salary structure has been increased by 10% across board from January 2025 to December 2025. International daily minimum wage by 10% over the 2024 national daily minimum wage, which translates into a new national daily minimum wage of 19.97 Ghana cedis.
And you had there Rashid Pelpo, his Minister for Labour, Jobs and Employment, speaking at that meeting earlier. The Minister for Finance, Dr. Kaisel Atoforsin, pleaded with organised labour to consider the government effort in reviving the economy to meet their needs.
Labour have gone through also a lot, obviously, as a major stakeholder in the Ghanaian economy. It hasn't been easy for all of us. But then again, we recognize that this year is the year that all of us, as stakeholders of the Ghanaian economy, will have to begin the process to sacrifice. But what we can also assure Labour is that we won't let you down.
You had the Finance Minister, Dr. Kaisel Atoforsin. Labour Affairs correspondent Daniel Opoku sat through the deliberations. He joins us live on the line. Daniel, really sum up everything for us, the demands going into the negotiations and the outcome beyond what I just put out, which is the initial 30 at 60% coming down to 35 and the government eventually offering 10.
Right, so good evening to you, Beatrice. The figures that you just talked about, normally those are figures that you have both parties tabling when they meet to negotiate. So in the case of organized labor, usually you have them going to their caucus meetings, and then they will agree on the figures before they will meet government to table those figures. And if you compare what Labour did this year as compared to last year, Labour last year was looking around 70 to 75%. By this time around, they pegged their figure at 60%, hoping that at least government would have met them halfway, possibly by 30%. But unfortunately, government may have to finally settle on the 10%, which Labour actually is so much disappointed. And they are even finding it very difficult to speak to their members because they do recall that about in 2021, government granted 4% and 7% for 2022. That really created a lot of problems for them, where a lot of their members had to come after them. And this time around, they have agreed on 10%. It's the reason a lot of the labor union leaders have gone into hiding. They are not ready to speak. They are not ready to stick their necks out for their members to come after them. Basically, that's what happen. So they may have to agree to the percentages and hoping by next year or before the close of this year, they need to negotiate for that of 2026. Then in that case, all of them will have a better understanding of the economy. They don't know how to position themselves very well.
But do I take this to mean that eventually they will have to call off the strike, although it's going to be a very difficult communication for them to send across to their members?
Right. So in the case of the strike, you have CLOGSAC looking at one individual person, and in that case, the Sector Minister of Labour, Jobs and Employment, President John Dramani Mahama, after joining organized labour's meeting today, directed the Sector Minister to go ahead and engage CLOGSAC to be able for CLOGSAC to call off his strike. So our engagement with the Sector Minister, what he indicated to us is the fact that he's ready to engage with CLOGSAC, and hopefully by close of day tomorrow we should have members of CLOGSAC calling off their strike based on the engagement and the amicable solution that they'll be able to have. If they fail to do so, then obviously the strike may have to travel to next week. But we foresee, from where I sit, I foresee CLOGSAC calling off the strike by close of day tomorrow, based on huge commitment that we'll get from government by close of day tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Daniel Opoku, Labour Affairs correspondent. Let's also speak to Abraham Kumsin, his General Secretary of the Ghana Federation of Labour. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello, Mr. Kumsin. Okay, we seem to have a challenge connecting to Abraham Kumsin. Let's correct that and we'll have that conversation. And whilst we try to connect to Abraham Kumsin, we stay on labour-related matters because the Minister of Labour, Jobs and Employment says he's confident that CLOGSAC will call off a strike by close of day tomorrow, February 21. You just heard our Labour Affairs correspondent Daniel Opoku give us that as well. CLOGSAC is on a strike demanding the removal of Samuel Adumboche as the head of Birth and Death Registry. The group insists that Mr. Boche is a politically exposed person and therefore should not be allowed to occupy an office meant for a civil servant. The industrial action, which commenced today, brought activities at the various assemblies and other agencies to a halt, leaving members of the general public stranded. Our reporters monitored the strike across the country. First, let's listen to this report filed by Ibrahim Abubakar from the Ashanti region.
The usual long queues at the Ashanti regional office of the Birth and Death Registry was missing on Thursday morning. None of the staff reported to work in compliance with the strike directive from the leadership of CLOGSAC. Applicants had to leave the office without being attended to in a frustrated mood. The busy Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly was empty, even though some National Service personnel were at post. The situation was not different at the Asukwa Municipal Assembly, as all CLOGSAC members abstained from work. For those who had come to the assembly for a service, they left without being served. They expect government to intervene and bring the workers back to post.
I came to deliver an official letter to the MCA, but apparently they are on strike, and the CLOGSAC strike has really affected. So I wasn't able to officially deliver the letter. So I've been turned away. That's basically it. Into the government to actually hew to their plea so that they can resume work, so that I think business could continue.
The regional office of the Controller and Accountant General Department was also not open to the public, even though the director reported to work. The CLOGSAC members say they will continue to stay away from office until their demands are met. This means clients may have to bear the brunt from now until when they decide to resume their services. Ibrahim Abubakar, Kumasi.
As I just told you, the Minister of Labour, Jobs and Employment, who has been reacting to the strike, is confident of resolving the impasse. He told our Labour Affairs correspondent Daniel Opoku that he believes CLOGSAC will call off the strike by close of day tomorrow. Let's try and see whether we can get have that conversation with Abraham Kumsin, who is the General Secretary of the Ghana Federation of Labour. Good evening to you, sir. If you can hear us, thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Beatrice.
So you were in the meeting today. Labour began with a high demand, 60%. You eventually dropped it to 35%, but ended up with 10%. Would you say that you got a fair deal?
Oh, it's a fair deal. But we all appreciate the challenges, facing this country. So I think what we achieved is not bad at all, considering the financial crisis that we all find ourselves in. It's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. So
the whole of last year, we didn't negotiate. What went wrong? Last year, we didn't negotiate for anything. This what we are doing now should have been done last year. Last year, April or something like that. We didn't do it. And government that has come to inherit this rot, what do you expect them to do? They could have even given lesser than what they finally offered. So we appreciate it.
Our understanding is that the intervention of the president made you rescind that decision or lower, as it were, your stance on even the 35% to eventually accept the 10%. Is that what actually transpired?
Oh, yeah, it's true. By his intervention, actually, the expectation of our members, was, that's 35. So as leaders, we tried to manage it and came to 15%. Then the 15 was too much for the finance minister and the employment minister. So they had to bring in the president to come to explain things to us for us to understand the situation. Even though the finance minister was able to explain the issues very well, the financial crisis, the debts that they've come to inherit, and how they are going to settle them. But all the same, our members, we don't act on our own. So the members weren't understanding the explanation. So the ministers had to call the president in to come and also confirm that the situation is too bad, that if we're not very careful, the whole economy will crash. And so what do we allow the economy to crash? If it crashes, we'll all be in trouble. And you see, there's one thing to, those of us who, organize the private sector employees, the manufacturing sector, our challenges are quite different. The taxes are destroying the private sector. And so if you make demands that are not reasonable, you have that sector to collapse totally. So we were a bit, mindful of these challenges, because already the sector is complaining about taxes, excise duties, which is making their products not be able to compete with those coming from outside. So, and they are losing market, and that is affecting their jobs of the workers. So, if we are not reasonable and we make certain demands, it will help. It will speed the collapse of that sector. So we, in that sector, were a bit, in fact, if you go to, certain areas, minimum wage, it doesn't cut across. It has been, yes, there are sectors that, you are guided by certain.
So essentially what you're saying, Mr. Kumsing, is that you acknowledge the challenges in the economy and therefore you think that a 10% wasn't a bad deal for organized labor. That's what you're saying, or for labor?
It is the best.
I want to acknowledge the presence of labor consultant, Mr. Abraham Yale. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you as well for joining us on the line.
Thank you.
I'll come to you, Mr. Yale, but let me ask Okay, we've just lost Abraham Kumsin on the line there, but Mr. Yale, if you can hear me, I mean, the representative, the representative of Labour doesn't seem to have a problem with a 10% salary increment agreed by the government. What's your own assessment as a consultant?
But I wasn't expecting him to say they had a problem because he was part of the negotiating. You were part of the negotiating team, and we negotiate in good faith. So whatever the outcome is, you need to defend it. So I wasn't surprised. But for me, the aspect that he said that worried me was he sounded a bit political. That the government has inherited a very bad economy and those type of things because we don't have that evidence. So for me, when we are going to negotiate in good faith based on the fact that we have. You see, the president coming in, for me, I would say there was something called power imbalance.
Indeed, yes, that was the question I was going to ask him before he even dropped the line.
It was power imbalance. You know, his presence alone had to influence things. Because for me, the president had no business going there. Because giving a mandate to your finance minister, to your team, I mean the finance minister and the labor minister, to go and negotiate on your behalf. If they needed a renewed mandate, they should have just come to you and to say that they come and renew their mandate. But you went there, if Labour had not accepted, how were they going to renew their mandate?
But again, we've had instances where Labour has had meetings with the president and they didn't agree. So what about the other side of the argument that it might not necessarily have been his presence intimidating them, as it were?
No, you see, any new government enjoys, do I say, goodwill, from Labour, because every new government will try to paint a bad picture of the previous administration. That they've run down the economy, they've done this, so give me time and those. So for me, it was one of the, negotiation, strategy that the government used, getting its 10%. For me, all is good. It's better. They say in absence of nothing bad is good. So,
in your opinion, though, what other measures do you think could be introduced to improve the working conditions of public sector employees? Because if they were asking for a minimum of 35% eventually, that means that they probably know how much things are costing now and the need for them to have increased salaries, as it were.
Yeah, the issue is that let us look at it. Let's use the exchange rate, the dollar. For example, last year, maybe January, the dollar was maybe around 10. 10. CD to dollar maybe was 10, and it went up to maybe 15. So, which means that your income might have eroded in terms of dollar, the value in terms of dollar, by 50%. Therefore, if Labour, and look at our inflation, because normally increment should be higher above inflation, so that at least you cushion the people, you bring the person back to where he is supposed to be or he was supposed to be, but due to the economic conditions, his income has been eroded. Mind you, this increment is for a year, and within the year, so many things could happen. That could erode or erase whatever gains that they've made. 10%, I wouldn't say is bad, but comparatively, when you look at the economy, the economic conditions as all of us are facing, well, the 10% is woefully inadequate, honestly. However, it's a new government that believes that he has inherited bad economy. Therefore, he needed to, plead with organized labor to look at his goodwill, to give him some of that goodwill, to come back down on their demands and make some compromise. Negotiations about give and take, win-win. It's a win-win affair. In this case, it's a win-win affair. So the parties have agreed, for which we need to respect it.
Entity, thank you very much. And that was Abraham Yale. He is a Labour consultant. Some 29 minutes past the hour of 12. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Now, President John Mahama has officially composed his cabinet. The 19 ministers are expected to begin regular meetings as soon as possible to fashion policy and determine the direction of the country. Minister for State in charge of Government Communications, Felix Kwachiofosu, at a press briefing after the first cabinet meeting, announced the ministers who made it to the President Mahama's cabinet.
This body of 19 ministers, chaired by the president himself. And I would proceed to announce the names of the 19 ministers who form the cabinet. First on the list, Minister for Finance, the Minister for the Interior, Minister for Health, Minister for Defense, the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, the Minister for Energy and Green Transition, the Minister for Education, the Minister for Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Minister for Food and Agriculture, Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovations, the Minister for Roads and Highways, Minister for Environment, Science and Technology, Minister for Works, Housing and Water Resources, Minister for Local Government, Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Minister for Transport, Minister for Labor, Jobs and Employment. So these are the 19 ministers who form cabinet together with the president.
Well, Felix Kwachiofosu also provided an overview of what transpired today at the first meeting.
State of security in the country. So the Minister for the Interior, the Minister for Defense and the National Security Coordinator took turns to brief cabinet on the security situation in the country. And the general view emanating from the briefing was that Ghana's security was strong. We are a safe country and people are free to go about their normal activities without let or hindrance. And whatever threats exist, our security agencies have the capacity to deal with. So Ghana was declared safe from the briefings that were made at cabinet today. The second briefing was made by the presidential advisor on the 24-hour economy and accelerated export development, Mr. Guzitano. He briefed cabinet on preparations so far towards a full rollout of the 24-hour economy. And one was left with the impression that tremendous work had gone into what is arguably President Mahama's foremost transformation plan, which aims to convert the Ghanaian economy from its present state into one that never sleeps and works around the clock. The briefing from Mr. Tano and his team shows, I beg your pardon, that we are on course to ensuring a smooth takeoff. And in due course, the 24-hour secretariat would be engaging the Ghanaian media so that through you, they can apprise the people of Ghana as to where things stand. And the president and everybody else in cabinet was highly confident that based on the roadmap that had been established, we were on course to achieving the objective of having a 24-hour economy. The final briefing was made by the minister responsible for finance. As you may be aware, we campaigned strongly on Ghana's failing economy. And indeed, our fears were borne out when the finance minister made his briefing. The situation is dire. The numbers are even worse than we had known in the period of the elections. But the minister, the president, and others involved in the management of the economy were confident that the proposals, the policy propositions, and the program that President Mahama has put on the table were sufficient to turn around the situation and lift the pall of economic hardship and despair that has hung over this country and its people all these years under the new Patriotic Party, where economic mismanagement and imprudent decision-making was commonplace. In a few days' time, President Mahama will be addressing parliaments. He will be delivering a message on the state of the nation to parliaments.
And you heard Felix Kwakye-Ofosu, Minister responsible for government communications. Komla Kluche joins us live now. He sat through the briefings and got some information on it. Komla, if you can hear me. First, let's begin with the security briefing. Did the minister explain why Ghana was declared safe in view of the pocket of violence in Boko and Wale, for instance?
Well, I asked him, those were the questions I asked him, and then he was of the opinion that, yes, of course, the security chiefs did brief cabinet on what the situation is, but what the president has been engaged in currently is for him to be engaging in dialogue and also stakeholder engagement to avert the situation in the Boku and the Wale enclave. And so, irrespective of the fact that there's heavy deployment of security to the place, is still engaged in dialogue and stakeholder engagement so that the tension and the conflict could be reduced to its barest minimum. There's also the hope that he would be dependent on the Asante Tunfo set to be able to deal with it. This was contained in his last appearance when he went to Boku shortly after he was sworn into office. And so, yes, it's even though they reckon that, of course, the situation in the northern side of the country, that the Boku enclave, remains volatile, the general security situation in the country remains peaceful, and that citizens have been assured that they can go about their normal duties without fear or favor.
Komla, we also do understand that Mr. Guzitano, who is the presidential advisor on the 24-hour economy, spoke about this whole idea as well, and even about accelerated export development. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, not much details on that, except to say that in the coming days, they will get to see what the way forward is and then the blueprint on how it's going to shape up. We can only wait to see how that is going to be, except that these were briefings that the president had, and then the assurance is to the effect that, of course, the task is given to Mr. Guzitano. He's been performing it, and he's adequately briefed the president on the extent to which he's gone on this, and that to a large extent it will get some amount of work done on it by the time they are ready to be rolled out, and that the public will get to know very, very soon as to what the status quo would be.
And finally, we heard Felix Kwakye-Ofosu mentioning the finance minister, of course, as part of cabinet. We do understand he also addressed the meeting or one of the briefings. What did he say?
Well, the president has been speaking all day. His first activity this morning was at that tripartite meeting where he described Ghana as a crime scene. He said he thought that the situation was that bad, but looking at what the picture is, what they've even been able to uncover, there's been some criminality in terms of the handling of the economy since they took over office, and that they are going to be very plain and very open to the people of Ghana as to what the situation is. As we speak, it doesn't appear that there is some good news regarding the economy, but it's the reason why they were elected. He doesn't have to complain, but he would be as open and transparent as it is to the people of Ghana and let them know what the status quo is, and that he's equally been ordering the Minister of Finance to cut down on government expenditure, especially, and the Minister of Finance should use his own discretion to cut it down. They are not going to dictate to him. Even the office of the president will not dictate to him as to how he should go about the cutting of expenditure, so that they are able to tighten their belt and get the country out of the quagmire that it finds itself now.
Thank you so much, Komla Kluche, for bringing us updates of those meetings held earlier today. Now, the government says that it has secured adequate fuel supplies to curtail disruptions in power generation, even as WAPCO has shut down its plant for maintenance. Briefing the media after the first cabinet meeting of government, the Minister of State for Government Communications, Felix Kwachiofosu, said that the government is minded about the negative impact of power disruptions and will not plunge the country into darkness.
The threats that we faced at the very onset of this government, which related to the closure of the West African gas pipeline and the failure of the previous government to meet its obligation of providing fuel for thermal power generation, was averted. Government has brought in adequate supplies of fuel, but it is important from time to time to engage the public to address concerns that they may have with the power situation. The Energy Ministry will be doing that in the coming days.
Felix Kwachiofosu is in charge of government communication. Now, the Member of Parliament for Akrofi, Ernest Yaokumi, has filed an appeal against his contempt of court conviction by the Koforidua High Court. Speaking to journalists in Parliament, Deputy Minority Whip Jerry Ahmed Shaib reviewed that the MP has also applied for a stay of execution on the bench warrant issued against him pending his appeal at the Supreme Court.
The Akrofi MP was convicted on Wednesday, February 19, for presenting himself to be sworn in as a Member of Parliament despite an injunction barring him. With Ernest Yaokumi absent, the court withheld sentencing but issued a bench warrant for his arrest. Reacting to the development, Deputy Minority Whip Jerry Ahmed Shaib stated that further legal steps have been taken to challenge the conviction.
I'm happy that this discussion is being had in this
the ruling of the High Court at the Court of Appeal. An application for stay of execution pending appeal has also been filed at the High Court, number 3, Koforidua. Moreover, all the parties to the certiorari and prohibition application, including the judge, His Lordship Justice Emmanuel Senyo Amedehe, who is the respondent to this application before the Supreme Court, have been duly served.
He also accused the presiding judge at the Koforidua High Court, Justice Senyo Amedehe, of bias.
When you are dealing with someone who can now be termed a biased judge and you are not too sure of what he stands to do next, from the chronology of events, I have not in my life as a practitioner seen any of this. That where there are major applications emanating from the Supreme Court, you still see a judge virtually, pardon my language, rubbishing those applications and would proceed to make rulings. The question any reasonable mind would ask is, what is the interest of the judge in the matter before him?
Jerry Ahmed Shaib further emphasized that the justice system should not be weaponized and called for fairness in applying the law.
Ghana's democracy thrives on fairness, the rule of law, and the principles of justice. The actions taken against Honorable Ernest Yaokumi threaten not only his rights, but also the very foundation of our democratic processes and principles. The judicial system must not be weaponized to serve partisan interest or undermine the will of the people of Akrofi.
Noble Crosby Annan filed that report. Meanwhile, the embattled MP for Akrofi, Ernest Kumi, has called on the political class to advocate or ask for fairness. He was contributing to a statement on social justice which was made by MP for Ewutu-Senya East, Phyllis Na Koyo. Listen.
I'm happy that this discussion is being had in this parliament dispassionately. Just last week, a simple request for procedural fairness from the minority leader on behalf of a former minister of this republic degenerated into a debate on this floor. And as I sat in my chair, I asked myself, for how long will we keep doing this to ourselves? Because today it is me, tomorrow it could be you. And as we keep arguing along the way, I asked myself that if the Constitution guarantees that at least we need to be fair to ourselves, why can't we allow and ask for a simple procedural fairness to happen? Other speakers have spoken already on other things that do happen to us as politicians. The protocol conundrum that we politicians keep giving to people is also increasingly becoming a challenge to us in this country. And to quote the Honorable Dr. Kumbo, who had said previously in other public domains, until you are injected by an incompetent doctor or nurse for you to die, that is when you know that we need to begin to advocate for fairness and equal opportunity and access for people. Mr. Speaker, just this morning, I was asked by a journalist within this precinct of Parliament that he wants to know that are we waiting, or for how long will we wait until when a president wins an election in this country?
And you heard the embattled MP for Akwatia, Ernest Komi, speaking on the floor of Parliament earlier today. We go to the northern part of the country because the regional hospital there, formerly known as Tamale Central Hospital, is facing imminent shutdown over mounting debt of some 3.3 million cedis as monies overpaid the hospital by the National Insurance Authority. Between November 2023 to date, NHIA has deducted over 800,000 cedis, leaving an outstanding balance of 3.3 million cedis. Well, Christopher Marco has the rest of the story.
In 2018, the National Health Insurance Authority instituted an audit on the Northern Regional Hospital, formerly known as Tamale Central Hospital, spanning January 2014 to May 2017. This was to verify irregularities that led to the overpayment of 4,223,929 Ghana cedis paid to the facility. The irregularities cited by the audit report established that the hospital used secondary tariffs to bill NHIA clients when the facility is credentialed as a primary hospital. It also revealed that during the period under review, NHIA wrongly paid duplicate claims of some 15,876 submitted by the hospital for reimbursement. Medical Superintendent of the hospital, Dr. Bashiru Abdul-Majid, has been explaining the situation.
In 2018, National Health Insurance came claiming that we were not supposed to be paid secondary tariffs. Our hospital was not qualified to operate as a regional hospital. So they did an audit, compliance audit, and slapped a penalty amounting to about over 4.2 million on the hospital. A chunk of it was coming from the overpayment from the secondary tariffs.
But how is this affecting the quality of healthcare delivery here at the Northern Regional Hospital?
Because it's difficult operating the hospital without the needed consumables. It has affected the quality of service. The attendance here have reduced drastically. This hospital is supposed to be the referral center. Because of this situation, operating this hospital is very difficult.
The hospital is appealing to government for a waiver.
But we want government to look into the matter. This matter has really stretched the hospital. I think that a waiver is better because whatever amount they are deducting, it is not going to be easy for this hospital to function.
Dr. Bashiru Abdul-Majid emphasized that the hospital will be compelled to shut down if government fails to intervene.
In fact, at the next payments, if insurance fails to pay us at least 2 months or 3 months, we are likely to have problems. Because right now we don't have anything in our stores to work with.
Christopher Hammoah filed that report 49 minutes past the hour of 12. You're still here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. When we come back, we'll bring you the latest in business. Don't go away.
Hey, ready to make your drive home epic? It's the 3FM Drive with the one and only Giovanni Killen right here on 3FM 92.7. Weekdays, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. We're transforming your commute into a top-tier experience. Need a pick-me-up? Our music belt is pure energy, pure vibes. Stay ahead with the Drive Sports, bringing you the latest scores and highlights. Curious about the stars? We've got all the hottest trends, celebrity profile interviews, plus DJ faculty has got you.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays on 3FM Drive. You know where it's at.
This is where the action is at, live on the 3FM Drive on 3FM 92.7. Welcome to the 3FM Drive. That's right!
It's the battle of the teams in a 3FM 60-day Fit Start Challenge. Which team will come up tops? Will it be Team Comfort or Team Helen? Will age and tact act triumph? Or will youth and energy win? Call or WhatsApp on these numbers: 0532 300 927 or 0532 200 927. Now, to join Team Comfort or Team Helen and enjoy holistic wellness coaching, specialized diet plans, and cooking tutorials, thrilling exercises, challenges, and activities, plus many exciting rewards. 3FM Fit Start is sponsored by Daffy's Health and Beauty, Bill's Microfinance and Usual Premier, and supported by Blue Skies and the Ghana Medical Association. 3FM Fit Start, your health, your journey, your victory.
Accra, Ghana, Africa, and worldwide. Join us on Inspirational Gospel Mix this and every Sunday, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Get ready for the revolution.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition. Coming up tonight, government assures of adequate fuel to sustain power supply. We have details of this and more coming up shortly. Please stay. Now the details. The Minister of State for Government Communications, Felix Kwachio-Fosu, has assured the public that the government has secured adequate fuel supplies to prevent disruptions in power generation, despite recent complaints of intermittent power outages in parts of the country. Speaking at a press briefing, Mr. Kwachio-Fosu addressed the power cuts, clarifying that the government has taken proactive measures to maintain a stable energy supply
in the country. So the Minister for the Interior, the Minister for Defense, and the National Security Coordinator took turns to brief Cabinet on the security situation in the country. And the general view emanating from the briefing was that Ghana's security was strong. We are a safe country, and people are free to go about their normal activities without let or hindrance. And whatever threats exist, our security agencies have the capacity to deal with. So Ghana was declared safe from the briefings that were made at Cabinet today. The second briefing was made by the presidential advisor on the 24-hour economy. The threats that we faced at the very onset of this government, which related to the closure of the West African gas pipeline and the failure of the previous government to meet its obligation of providing fuel for thermal power generation, was averted. Government has brought in adequate supplies of fuel, but it is important from time to time to engage the public to address concerns that they may have with the power situation. The Energy Ministry will be doing that in the coming days. In a few days' time, President Mahama will be addressing Parliament. He will be delivering a message on the state of the nation to Parliament, and he will take the opportunity to delve deep into our current economic state, what we inherited, and what plans there are going forward to ensure economic revival and resuscitation.
Well, that was Minister of State for Government Communication, Felix Kwakye Ofosu. Now, President John Mahama has called for a strict reduction in wasteful government spending as part of efforts to stabilize the economy. Addressing organized labor in Accra, he emphasized the need for fiscal discipline, warning that excessive expenditure could derail economic recovery and long-term growth.
Our options are very few. We can behave like the ostrich and hide our heads in the sand and let the economy crash. But then what effect will it have on Ghanaian households and everybody? And so I've told him, I said, cut expenditure as much as you like. Even we ourselves in Office of Government Machinery, cut as much of our budget as you like, because we all must make those sacrifices. A certain distrust of the political class has arisen, because it's like when everybody else is tightening their belts, the political class is loosening its belts. But I want to assure you that we're all going to tighten our belts, and there will be no wasteful expenditure. It is said that we create and share. And so let's start cooking the meal now so that we can share when we have created. But right now, the meal is not only insufficient, the cooking pot is even leaking. And so I'll just appeal to you that let's temper our demands for this year. And once we get out of the woods, we've set good targets to bring inflation down so that the cost of everything will come down. We've set targets to grow the economy, to make things better. And when the cake is baked and is bigger, we'll share bigger.
You heard the voice of President John Dramani Mahama. Well, that will be all for Business News on Hot Edition. For more stories, please check out our website. It's 3news.com. My name is Minu Afo. Stay tuned. Sports News is up next.
Accra, Ghana, Africa, and worldwide. Join us on Inspirational Gospel Mix.
evening and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Ore Kwampofo. Let's do sports and head into the stories where President of the Ghana Football Association, Kurt Okreku, visited the management of Asante Kotoko for the first time since the death of passionate fan Nana Pole, who lost his life during a trip to Nswatre in a match between Asante Kotoko and Nswatreman. Addressing the issue during his first meeting with the club since the incident, Okreku advised that the person who was the killer of Nana Pole must come out to ensure that justice is served and Ghana football can move forward.
When that singular act happened in Nswatre, there was a human being with that person who used the knife or whatever it is to take the life of Nana Pole. That person must be honest. That person who was the killer must be honest and come out to tell us where the killer is. If that person is honest, if that person loves life, if that person loves football, this is the time for that person to be honest to football by telling us where that killer is. Because wherever that killer is, we will chase he or she out of their hiding place or his hiding place and bring him or her to justice.
So the president for the Ghana Football Association, Kurt Okreku, also explained that he had been out of the country working for the GFA and also taking care of his health, and hence that's the reason why he had not been seen in any of the meetings and engagements that had been going on since we did experience that hooliganism in Nswatre. We'll be bringing you more updates as this story develops. But let's do some more and focus on the 2024-2025 CAF Champions League, which has reached its business part. The last 8 teams in the competitions discovered their fate today during the draw. African football expert Mickey was in attendance and shared his thoughts on the draw and some standout fixtures to look forward to.
The draw was fairly conducted here in Doha, Qatar. Qatar proved that when it comes to hosting of events, they can be, a force to reckon with. I mean, the setup was perfect. Organization was great. Everything was on point. We had reps from various clubs who were in attendance. Also, one thing that saddened my heart was when CAF played a video for the Champions League and West Africa was part of that video where CAF was, trying to talk about the Champions League and says that, when it comes to the pride of African football, you can't do away with West Africa. And Kumasi Sports Stadium was shown, something that likens to, Asante Kotoko. And it broke my heart that, where we are now, Ghanaian clubs are finding it difficult to compete at the highest stage in African football. So all in all, it was a good draw. Some of the big games, I think the Confederation Cup, ASEC Mimosa, hosting Zamalek in the first leg will be a cracker. 2 teams with a lot of pedigree and history in African football. Also in the Champions League, we cannot talk without mentioning Ali versus Al Hilal, cracker. And so I think it was a good game. We look forward to the game starting from April, next month actually ending in the second leg games in April.
And so that was Mickey Jr. there. Let's move from the one continent to the other, where we move from Africa to Europe, because there was Champions League action on Wednesday. That's the playoff round. And we did see some second leg fixtures producing some unexpected outcomes. Eventually, European powerhouse Real Madrid dominated Manchester City with a 3-1 victory at the Bernabeu, securing a 6-3 aggregate win. Head coach of Manchester City, Pep Guardiola, admits that after the match, the better team won on the night.
We want to extend the position down, goal down as long as possible, so we cannot deal with the physicality and the rhythm they have. So that's why it's a lot of calm with the ball. But after conceding the goal in the first action, we didn't defend well our back, so it's more difficult. Accept it. So the best team won. Congratulate Real Madrid and now focus in our Premier League.
Now, before we go, just by way of updates in tennis. British number 1 Jack Draper made light work of Australian Christopher O'Connell as he made the quarterfinals of the Qatar Open. Now, Draper thrashed Christopher O'Connell 6-2, 6-1 in 58 minutes to cruise into the quarterfinals of the Qatar Open in Doha. That's all that we have for you when it comes to sports on Hot Edition. My name is Oreku Ampofu. You can get more sports updates on our social media handles at 3SportsGH, and then also on our website 3news/sports.
Some 12 minutes past the hour of 12. This is still Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Thank you very much, Menuafo, for bringing us the latest in business. Also, Ore Kwampo for With Sports. Let's bring you some more here. And the International Finance Corporation has expressed commitment to investing in local companies to create more jobs for Ghanaians. With a target of $600 million this year, the corporation says it will seek partnerships with the government and members of parliament to grow the private sector. The majority leader, Hammoah, has expressed confidence such collaborations will help boost the economy. We'll hear from him shortly, but let's connect to Christian Yale, who is a man covering this event for us. Chris, what more can you tell us? We've lost Christian on the line. We try to connect to Christian Yale. Let's listen to the majority leader, Hammoah, speak at that meeting earlier.
Will be constrained in terms of the financing of a lot of the commitments that we have made. And so increasingly we need to be looking at sources like yours and then working with the private sector to be able to create jobs and grow the economy, and parliamentarians should be in the forefront of linking industries to funding sources and also trying to shape policy that will enable the development of industry. Indeed, what we saw at the garment factories in Accra, the number of young people who are employed there, the quality of products that are manufactured here in Ghana, it will amaze you that a lot of the things that you are buying in shops in New York and in London and Brussels and other places are actually made here in Accra, except that you don't know they are made in Accra. And I was quite impressed that there's been that improvement in the quality of work at our garment factories, but it still remains very small, and there's a huge potential. And so I'm hoping that the parliamentarians who are here, will engage with you in terms of their various constituencies, what industries are there, and if the private sector players in our various constituencies can be mobilized to begin to prepare themselves and position themselves to be able to access financing from IFC and others. I think that will definitely go a long way to help us fulfill our commitment to the young people to create jobs.
You have the majority leader, Hammoah. Now, the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Dr. Agnes Momolante, says that plans are underway to facilitate the construction of some 16 shelters in all regions to provide safe spaces for victims of abuse to ensure timely interventions for such cases. Ekia Oforiwa Dako has the rest of the story.
Key among the government's 120 days agenda is the implementation of the Affirmative Action Act, especially with regards to timelines and requisite resources.
It's been long in coming. Now that it is here, the people that the act is meant for need to know what is in the act and how they can also take advantage of it and make sure that it betters their life.
The Gender Ministry is strengthening its partnership with the media to raise awareness about gender equality as well as promote women's empowerment at all levels.
Sometimes you see the men being given heavy contracts, other office, other logistics, and the women will be following down.
Addressing Ghanaian women in media, the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Dr. Agnes Namomolate, said that mentoring and coaching aspiring female journalists are crucial in enhancing gender representation in Ghana's media landscape.
Do you identify younger ones? This will also go into visiting the School of Journalism, finding out how many girls are there, picking some, because these things, they don't come when we wish for them, but when we take some steps with intentionality.
She further added that the Gender Ministry would be collaborating with the Trade and Industry and Food and Agriculture Ministries to enhance the school feeding program.
If you cannot feed it to yourself or feed it to your children, don't feed it to others. And so it's talking about quality.
Globally, social protection policies and programs have become an important mechanism for reducing poverty and inequality. However, Ghana's Social Protection Bill 2020 is yet to be passed into law.
The Social Protection Bill is yet to become an act. All of the things that we want to do around or on social protection, there's a need to have the backing of the law, and so that it is grounded and then it doesn't get treated as a privilege.
The Global Gender Gap Report 2024 measures gender disparities in 146 countries across 4 key dimensions: economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. Currently, political empowerment is the largest of 4 gender gaps at only 22.5% closed, according to the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report 2024.
Oforiwada co-filed that report. Let's return to that story about the International Finance Corporation expressing commitment to investing in local companies to create more jobs for Ghanaians. Christian Yale is the one who followed this story for us. He joins us live on the line. Christian Yale, we heard the majority leader there talking about this commitment coming from this agency, but what more can you tell us as regards what transpired at the program? Christian Yale, can you hear us? Now, the collapse of the steel bridge on the Samre River at Hammoah in the Wassa Amenfi West Municipality of the Western Region is leading to death, while pregnant women who are unable to access a makeshift bridge also deliver their babies at the brink of the river. There's more in the following report.
2 tragic deaths have occurred since December 2024 when the steel bridge on the Samre River collapsed. All 2 persons, according to TV3 news sources, drowned while attempting to cross the river following the collapse of the bridge. Also, 2 pregnant women who were unable to cross the river to access the hospital are reported to have delivered their babies right at the banks of the river.
On records, 2 deaths have been recorded. You know, this is a big river where this bridge is located. And so when the bridge collapsed, people were also trying to find their own way across, especially farmers. So in the process, they fall into this river and they get drowned. 2 deaths have been recorded. And where it is also pathetic is when pregnant women are trying to access the hospital, which is Samate's hospital. It is on the same bridge that they use. Sometimes you come to meet a pregnant woman who is on labor by the bridge, on the other side of the bridge. They cannot cross. 2 people have also delivered just at the banks of the river.
The bridge, until its collapse, linked towns such as Woman No Good, Momo Ninkwanta, Uramu Wansana, Tianyamiasem, Torumpai, Christian Kwanta, among others, to Samra Boy, an economic hub and the municipal capital, Asankregwa. Despite the provision of a makeshift bridge made of wood by residents, vehicles, especially commercial ones, loaded with goods, struggle to cross the river. A situation which is not only discomforting commuters, but also causing commercial transport operators to incur losses. We are only able to transport passengers to the river banks, then they cross with their tricycles. We are not able to go to Aboy. Passengers always complain, but there is nothing we can do. The authorities must do something about this situation.
We are
unable to cut our cocoa. Trading has also been affected. People have been drowning in the river. We've constantly spoken about it, but nothing has been done. So we are pleading with authorities to do something about it. The residents, who are mainly farmers, struggle to cart their farm produce to the market and have become extremely disturbed. Our cocoa is going waste. We are also unable to cross the river with our farm inputs. The situation will become more critical when the rains set in. He will embark on a demonstration should government fail to address the problem. For 7 times in succession, the Samra district has topped the Cocoa Board's best and productive districts leaderboard. Alhaji Azure Suleiman, assemblyman for Woman No Good electoral area, who doubles as the presiding member for the Menfi West Municipal Assembly, is apprehensive about the difficulties farmers are likely to face in carting their cocoa in the coming season, since there is no doubt that the river will overtop the makeshift bridge when the rains set in. He has called on government to pay an urgent attention to the bridge and have it reconstructed.
Akwesiado filed that report from the Central Region. That's it for the news here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice. Log on to 3news.com for more news. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good evening.